Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Taryn Sabia. I'm the director for the Florida Center for Community Design and Research at the University of South Florida. We're part of the School of Architecture there. It is graduation weekend, so I'll be returning to some festivities after this. And with me today, I have Ann Vinek-Dosvich, and I also have Lee Hayes Byron, who has graciously joined us since Sarah Kane couldn't be with us today. So I just want to make that note in your program in case you haven't seen it yet. We're going to give a little background on another portion of the REACH project that I know many of you have heard a lot about with the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council. And with the REACH project, we've also been looking at this question related to energy efficiency and affordable housing. So, and really the relevance of this question about how we move from energy burdened to energy efficiency has guided us in a couple workshops recently where we brought together a number of different experts and those who are practicing in the fields of affordable housing, sustainability, and other energy efficiency programs to really get a better understanding of what is out there right now, what's happening, what types of programs, who are they serving, and how we begin to move forward kind of full force in terms of really addressing energy burden. So looking at why this is important, and the why behind this question has a lot to do with who. So what does it take to qualify for assistance when it comes to energy and receiving assistance in order to help meet the demands of energy burdens? We just heard a little bit about household income being spent for housing and for transportation costs, right, which we know are high in our area now. But when we also look at energy, typically for low-income households, according to the Department of Energy, they're spending about 8.6% of household income on electricity. So it's a big percentage for compared to non-low-income households. And depending on their area of the country and where they are, it could be as high as 30%. So energy costs are something that are really becoming more and more relevant, especially as we have aging structures. So the older our homes, right, the more inefficient they are. And when we look at, again, these income brackets for qualifying, and then we look at some of the average salaries, right, in our area. So this is Tampa Bay area averages. Some of these are across the state of Florida because that's what data is available right now. But, you know, if we're looking at teachers, and this seems high for some parts of our state, right, at just over 55,000 on average, then we start to see these brackets needing to be widened in terms of who may need to qualify for programs. And then we add this to it, right? So this is from a recent headline that many of you are familiar with. And as I was trying to pull data on current housing prices, rent prices, and what that looks like right now, it's really hard because it's changing so fast. So looking at the fact that from, you know, year to year, we are up over 32% in housing costs. So as we look at that housing cost going up and going higher, seeing ways that we can impact efficiencies is going to be important, both to reduce the burden, but also, again, as we're looking to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions as well. So in the study that we've been doing, working on the REACH project, we created a sliding scale to better understand some of the programs that are out there. And the sliding scale addresses that lower end, doesn't take as much work, doesn't take as much money, right? Being able to inform or educate, to the middle, which would be small retrofits. This might be replacing some appliances or looking at the interior of homes. And then looking at deep retrofits. So those bigger retrofits that look at the entire building envelope, right? That get us to be a bit more efficient. So I'm not going to show you all the case studies that we looked at. I just wanted to give you an idea of what some of these are, so we could just set the stage a little bit for Anne and Lee as they get into their project examples that they have today. So the first example that we had with looking at the sliding scale is actually out of New York City. But we wanted to show it because this project and program that has been really effective in New York City is kind of a one-stop shop for resources. They have a hub and it serves to really centralize those resources for homeowners. A lot of these programs are focused on homeowners, although they do serve renters as well. And a key component of these programs begins with the audit. And they do these audits to really help make sure that they're using the upgrades in the best way possible. And so you can see on this little sliding scale bar there that the programs here in NYC address everything from inform and educate to the smaller retrofits all the way to the deep retrofits. And they have great project examples of each of these throughout. Okay, sorry, guys. So for this one, we looked actually at West Palm Beach. And West Palm Beach has a really great program in terms of looking at their deep retrofits. And their deep retrofits looked at replacing not only appliances and HVAC systems, but also some of that building envelope that we talked about as well. And within that, we found that there was a 30% energy efficiency improvement from those deep retrofits. And so one of the things that we were asking at the recent workshops that we held are, what are goals or targets that we should be looking for within our region? What's reasonable, what's challenging, what's really going to help address the burden? So what is the right percentage that we should be looking in terms of that efficiency improvement to help get that cost down? So as we stop there, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn it over to Anne, and she's going to talk to us about the Solar Energy Loan Fund. And we wanted to be able to give you just some examples locally of projects that are taking place right now.
Hi. So I bet you think that might be the next big investment tip, right? So disappointment, right? You'll be wrong. That is actually how we build affordable housing in perpetuity, how we help families rise out of poverty, and how we save the planet. So my name is Anne Vanek-Gasevich. I am the Chief Operating Officer for the Solar and Energy Loan Fund, now known as SELF. And SELF is a CDFI, a community development financial institution regulated by the Treasury Department. And what we do is provide affordable and inclusive financing for homeowners in the low to moderate income for sustainable, climate resilient, renewable, thank you, and accessible home improvements. We are not PACE. Don't get me started on that. So I am the last person, if those of you who know me know this is true. So I am the last person anyone would call a COO, let alone of a finance company. Because the moment somebody says finance and says, debits and credits and, capital stack and P&L, I mean, my brain just kind of, my eyes glaze over and I'm like in smile and nod mode, right? So, but yet here I am. And I'll tell you why. It's because I believe that financing can change the world, believe it or not. So what we do is a little bit different. And I'm going to share an innovative and inspiring way to help create this world that we're talking about, right? Because, you know, financing is often called that secret sauce, right? Because everything costs money, and where are we going to get it? So our current residential model looks like this. They said to make sure that I talk to my audience at their level. I'm just kidding. So the problem here is that we have a happy family. They've got a leaky roof. They have crappy credit. And what happens is they're denied credit from traditional financing institutions in general, right? They've got a low credit score. They have no credit score. They're elderly. And if they are approved, it's at predatory rates. Well, they're still going to have a leaky roof, right? So here's our solution to that. Happy family, leaky roof, not so great credit. Self jumps in at this point and actually lends people money at low interest rates. It's an installment loan. It is unsecured lending. We have less than a 2% default rate because we don't look at credit score. What we're looking at is the ability to repay the loan, which we think is a better way of doing lending, right? And so you get, I should be, right? So we have a house here that's not getting rained on the inside. So our CFO, Duan Andrade, who's brilliant, she wanted to bring this kind of a solution to the multifamily rental side, right? So we worked and connected with some of the CLTs in South Florida. And over there, that problem's a little bit different. So a lot of you are probably really familiar with conservation land trusts, right? Who knows what that one is, right? It's a land trust where we save land in perpetuity in conservation. So community land trusts, though, are a little bit different. The magic of a community land trust is that they can purchase affordable housing and land and keep it affordable in perpetuity, which I looked it up. It definitely means forever. And essentially they acquire land. This is really cool, right? They acquire land and then they separate the building from the land, right? Or any buildings that come onto the land later, some future buildings. So that way, when they go to rent those buildings, that part of that equation doesn't come into play, right? So they can rent those units out at lower rates. It's brilliant, really, when you think about it, right? So the problem they have, though, especially in this very hot competitive market, is that their capital stack is not enough to compete with for-profit developers, right? So there's a project in Miami along a railroad line that is going in called the Bright Line. And we were given a grant for $5 million to help with affordable housing in that region. Well, so we came up with this. So we're working with community land trusts to buy buildings and land. They have their capital stack. We add to their capital stack. And capital stack's a big finance word, by the way. I just want you guys to note that I use that. And after we come in, you have a happy family who rents those homes. And those homes are forever affordable. So what do we get out of it though, right? So we're just a little CDFI. What do we get out of this? Okay, community land trust itself, you get green affordable housing because we require that it incorporate energy efficient, sustainable, climate resilient, and renewable energy features in these homes. These homes then these buildings are then much less to insure, and they're much less to live in because now they're energy efficient or renewable energy, right? So they're easier for these families to afford. And what does that give us? Happy families and a happy planet. Thanks.
Right. I'm gonna wait for there we go. Okay, hi everyone. I'm Lee Hayes Byron. I'm the Director of Sarasota County UFIFS Extension. And I am a pitch hitter today, so apologies if I mess anything up, but my expert is not able to be here today. So I'm going to talk to you about some of our programs that we have in Sarasota County that are aimed at addressing energy burdens, particularly for low-income households. So I'm going to try to explain the equity issues, but I think we've done that. So I'm going to skim over some of those, talk about our residential programs for underserved community members, and then just barely touch on some of our nonprofit work as well, which definitely gets into that affordable housing sector. So in Sarasota County, and I think in much of Florida, there is a lack of funding for energy efficiency programs in our communities. Other states have much more robust programs from their electric utilities in terms of efficiency improvements. We do not in our community. We don't have much of anything. And so we identified that gap, as well as the challenge that was pointed to earlier of the existing federal programs aren't enough. They aren't covering enough people, and there's long wait lines, and the existing resources out there aren't serving the need. So what can we do? So we also looked at the context of inequality within our community and the historic racism that is fueling these issues, and then tried to see what existing conservation programs we could tweak and add to and find funding for to solve the problem. So you all have been talking about this all day, so I won't dwell on the housing affordability issue in our community. In Sarasota County, we've got 53,000 low-income families that are cost burdened, and we can only touch some of those, but whoever we can help is great. The ALICE reports that I think you all are probably familiar with are great resources and help us understand that working families that aren't in those poverty levels but still are struggling, particularly with the increases in housing costs in the last year plus. So the point earlier about the percentage of income going to energy bills, there's a great resource out there from Department of Energy called LEAP data. You can find this data for your county. And for Sarasota County, we found that low-income families are spending between 13 and 19% of their income just on their energy bills. That's compared to 2 to 3% for middle-income families. A huge difference. And that's on top of all the other factors that y'all have been talking about today. So the increases of costs are real. For a while, we were able to say that Florida Power and Light had kept their rates flat for 10 years. That's no longer true. They got approved for a base rate increase as well as fuel cost increases, and all of those are being paid now by families. And so that's going to expect to be continued increasing over time. So what have we tried to do about it? I love your spectrum of program types. So we're trying to affect all parts of that spectrum. The furthest left, that education piece, is our energy upgrade program. We started with a grant in 2012, which we then adapted in 2016 in order to focus just on low-income families. If others come, great, but our focus is low-income families. We want to help them save energy. And so we give out kits that include light bulbs and power strips and weatherization tools. If they come to our workshop, they go away with one of these kits and they can start saving energy right away. They learn about all the parts of their home and how to be more efficient. And we've partnered with affordable housing providers and nonprofit human service agencies who are serving these low-income families. So we go to them, to agencies that are already working with these families, and we teach them where they are. We then realized we can't possibly reach those tens of thousands of families with the capacity that we had in terms of staff. So we developed a volunteer program called Energy Coaches, and we train them in order to then go into these households and help them directly. So they go through a 5-class training, which covers all parts of energy. And then we help them think through their roles. They go in homes into affordable housing units and actually install these items instead of just giving a bag and hoping that they get installed. The volunteers go in and do it. So we're sure they're going to get the savings. And they also do an evaluation and help the renters understand what's going on and how to be more efficient. We've done this through the Sarasota Housing Authority in their existing units, focusing on the units where the renters pay the utility bills. Some of them don't, it's part of the rent. In this case, they see the direct benefits. Then our volunteers also help us teach these classes and give away the kits. And they also do consultations at community events where people can come up, learn about efficiency in smaller sort of 5 to 10 minute interactions, walk away with a light bulb and a much better understanding. So our volunteers are making a huge difference. Got events all over the community. We had some drive-through events during COVID, and now we're back to outdoor events, but really reaching a whole lot of families where they are. In between 2012 and 2022, we've reached 3,700 households and are saving them over $380,000 a year in utility savings. And this compounds, right? So every household is that savings every year. And then of course there's the energy savings, which has climate benefit. We work together to do some outreach materials that are really quick one-off opportunities for them to pick up a piece of paper. On the front, it's energy and water saving strategies. On the back is utility bill payment assistance and other financial assistance resources around the community. It's churches, it's Salvation Armies, it's everyone who might be able to help them pay those bills that they're struggling to pay. So it's a one-stop shop for everything they need. Where does this funding come from? Much of it is from Sarasota County, who pays for the staff. But in addition to that, we have Department of Energy funding for the devices that we give away. We have FDEC's, Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services funding for our affordable housing retrofit program, which I didn't even mention, but that's on the further side, that deep retrofit side of the spectrum. And then the Charles and Marjorie Brancic Foundation is just doing incredible work in our community. And they've funded our energy program specialist position, as well as maintenance staff at the Sarasota Housing Authority who can go around and change air conditioning filters and fix leaky toilets and do the things that they didn't have staff capacity to do. And then we're also doing deep retrofits on their facilities related to insulation. Our nonprofit program is the last one I'll talk about, and this one was a grant from Partners for Places, which is a national program, and it is matched by 3 and 4 of our local community foundations, which started as $350,000 and it's really grown to over $1 million, which is helping local nonprofits retrofit their own facilities after getting very detailed energy roadmap audits. So those organizations that are serving low-income families are now paying less on their utility bills, and they can pass that savings into the programs that they serve. So just an example, we served 16 nonprofits, 4 of whom got solar projects, but the others all got efficiency improvements as well as their audits. We have a 5th one that got solar outside of this funding. We inspired them. We gave them the information that let them go to a grant themselves. And the roadmaps together are projected to save 30%. Again, that 30% threshold is really what we're looking for. An example is Children First, our local Head Start provider. They got served at 2 campuses. They're seeing 30% savings. They also got a solar installation, so they're at 90% savings at that facility. And just an incredible success story where that CEO is our biggest proponent now. He understands the value of efficiency for providing services to the families that they work with. This will all be, I assume, given to you. So we've got a whole lot of resources out there that you can look at to learn more about our programs, DOE programs. And then there's a series of University of Florida publications that outline how to do these programs in your communities, so that we want everyone to steal our work. Please take these ideas, run with them. We'll help you. We'll give you the presentations. We'll give you all the step-by-step considerations. So we hope more people can take advantage of this opportunity. Thank you.
Are these on? Ooh, excellent. Okay, so I have a couple questions that I just wanted to pose to our panelists, and then I'm going to open it up to all of you. So if you have questions, start thinking about them. But the first, Lee, I just wanted to follow up on what you just talked about and ask if you could give us kind of what the key step is to getting started. So if you have resources and things like that, what would that key first step be to get started in, a county or city?
So one of those fact sheets that I mentioned at the end is that step-by-step guide, and it talks about start where you are. So if you have a staff person who has a little bit of extra time who could add some education programs to what you do. We can give you the PowerPoint. You can start doing those education programs. That's free, except for the staff time involved. If you have a little bit of money to buy some kits, do the workshop, distribute the kits, and track the impact. If you have a little bit of more money, we do these library kits that you can do energy education through giveaways through the library, and they get checked out, checked back in. Great investment that carries on into the future. If you have bigger money or you want to try to get bigger money, there's opportunities to develop these bigger grant programs. But I don't want to scare people away by the $1 million grant we got. We started with almost nothing and built our way. And so as you see the success, you're inspired to try to find more opportunities.
That's great. And I really want to emphasize the track the impact piece, because you'll notice that in the research that we're looking for to find kind of these best practices and programs that are really effective, the ones that actually tracked the impact are the ones that we're pulling from, so that we can actually see how it's reducing the burden or improving the efficiency overall. And could you talk a little bit about partnerships and collaboration and what that looks like? I know you have a partnership with Hillsborough County and some others around the state.
Yeah, so SELF has partnered strategically as an implementation tool for local governments. We work with Hillsborough County, City of St. Petersburg. We're working in Orange County, City of Orlando. We just started working with Miami-Dade County, that was just announced. And then we work in with the Atlanta Housing Authority as well, up in Georgia. And these types of collaborations really make a difference. It makes it so that we can do our work and that we can help cities and local governments implement their, a variety of different goals, right? Sustainability goals, if they have job creation goals, these are all things where we impact those areas. So SELF is a tool that can be used in multiple different ways for local governments.
That's great. And I know that Hillsborough is working to track that impact too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, that's really important. And we actually track the impact too for our households. But additionally, I think Sarah Haas spoke earlier, and she spoke about a new tool that they're launching. And that tool can be used for multifamily buildings. So that can be used immediately by local governments as part of their, first step in analyzing whether or not those buildings are working for them or not, which is great. We haven't had that before.
Excellent. All right. So I'm going to open it up to the audience. Do you have any questions? CJ is coming around with a microphone for you.
It's more of a comment to Ann that SELF also funds mobile home repairs, which is very hard to get.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
And to retrofit them so they're
Yeah.
safer.
And we actually do like tie downs and air conditioner change outs, all those kinds of things to make mobile homes safe and secure. So that's, we're one of the only agencies that does that.
I'm glad you brought that up.
So I'm going to, since I have the mic, take advantage of that. Can you follow up on what is the scale of those kind of programs that you're supporting in terms of either numbers of units repaired or dollar values? If you had other local governments that wanted to do that, what should they be thinking of in terms of number of buildings and number of dollars?
So in general, I think, you can look at, I think our first year, we always try to get at least 50 homes and $500,000 worth of improvements, and we bring the capital, right? So that's not something that the local government partner has to worry about. By year 2, we're trying to get $1 million of retrofits. And by year 3, usually it's a 3-year agreement, we're trying to get $1.5 million of investments. That's usually like 150 homes. Doesn't sound like a lot, doesn't sound like a huge impact, but it continues to grow, and those impacts stay with that family. So, and that makes that house more affordable and actually increases the value of that house while it lowers the electric costs and the insurance costs. So it can be pretty important.
So for us, where you are on the spectrum of type of program affects how many households you can reach. So the education side, we reach a whole lot more people, but with less energy impact. Right. So you want to reach more people in order to multiply by a bigger number for the small impact. When you're further on the right side, there's smaller numbers of households reach, 100 in a year would be really exciting for us in order to do the in-home retrofits with our volunteers. But we're seeing better energy efficiency improvements. So, and then the even bigger investments that come from the grant opportunities are huge, but we only serve 16 nonprofits, but we serve those nonprofits in a really big way.
More questions?
Moving. Get my steps in today.
Hi, so this is about the SELF program. So as far as the energy efficiency and like promoting the green building aspects of it, are you promoting any kind of specific energy efficiency guided building standards like Passive House, the Energy Star, or the DOE Energy Ready, Zero Energy Ready program?
All of the above. No, we don't pick out one and go for one. You know, we try to make sure that the buildings, you know, after you evaluate them, you really know where you can get most bang for your buck, right? And that's the most important thing. And I think, again, that 30% that we've been talking about savings and energy costs is huge. And it's huge for these families. I mean, that's the most important part of this, is that you save them 30% on their energy bill, and their energy bill is $100. $30 may not sound like a lot to most of us, right? But it is to those families, and it makes all the difference.
If I could follow up also, are you seeing the ability of them being able to capture basically the savings from these retrofit solutions to pay for the actual retrofits?
Yeah, we actually bring that into our lending criteria when we do our underwriting. So they do, yeah, the savings from their electric bills are calculated as part of that. And then they use those savings to help pay that loan. And then they're very short-term loans too, which is just, you know, a heads up. So we are going anywhere from 5 to usually 10 years. That's pretty much the longest rate. So it pays it off very quickly, and it's an installment loan, so it builds their credit. So then they can, maybe won't have to go through SELF the next time.
For our nonprofits, we're seeing that some of them apply the savings to other energy related investments, but most of them are so strapped for funding that they're putting it to their program mission. And that's really why we did it. So the Children First organization is paying for diapers and formula and staff increases. And that's totally fine. That's why we did it.
I bet that's why FP&L really likes you. With energy going up and you're cutting energy in Sarasota. That's awesome. It's really amazing thing that you're doing.
I will say FPL is a partner in our volunteer program. Sometimes they will send their own staff out and partner with us on those, what we call energy sweeps. So they can partner with us and sometimes provide items that can be installed. So we're grateful for that partnership.
So I have two big questions for the audience, and if you can just by show of hands. One is, how many of you know the percentage of household income that your communities are spending on their energy costs? Okay, next question. How many of you have an idea of the overall outlook of the year housing was built by neighborhood in your communities? A couple there. Yeah, so two really important kind of data sets, right, that to overlap to get a sense of where are your older neighborhoods that you know are going to have older housing, and then where are the energy burdens happening on top of that. So just some data, right, to kind of kick off and get you started. And I think we have time for one more question.
Hi, my name is Jackie Kay, and I'm all the way from Collier County. Okay, so in Collier County, per capita, we have the wealthiest people as well as the poorest people in Immokalee. Now, I'm running for school board. I grew up in the community, so I'm trying to find ways that I can get at a level in in politics that I can actually effectuate change. So in Immokalee, we have slumlord conditions. Everyone knows about it, but no one is doing anything about it. And, you know, when you have trailers with no floors, people living in mold and mildew, it's disgusting. So I know with your program, this is for this community. Do you all work with other communities, or is that something I can find out more about and see if it is possible to help the Immokalee community?
Yeah, we work everywhere. So all of the state of Florida, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina.
Wow,
Yeah,
okay, thank
We
you.
are not restricted. Yet.
Here.